Hello, and welcome to Informatically Speaking, a Greater Delaware Valley ANIA podcast designed to promote knowledge sharing in the field of nursing informatics, locally, nationally, and globally within our unique industry. At GDV ANIA, we are committed to providing opportunities for professional development with the goal of advancing nursing informatics practice. I'm your host, Constance McLaughlin. Welcome back to the second installment of our series focused on self-care. And our guest, Julie Allyson of Julie Allyson Coaching and Retreat. Thanks for coming back, Julie. It's so great to have you here with us again.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
So in our last session, and this is a series of 3. In our last session, we discussed your framework, which you call You Decide. And we spoke about the first phase there called reset. So before we jump into the second phase today, which is reimagine, if you could give us just a brief recap on reset phase.
Absolutely, I would love to. So as you mentioned, so my framework is the You Decide framework. And just a little background is the reason why it's called that really quickly is that I found myself as I started my coaching practice saying that constantly, like it was coming, You Decide was coming out of my mouth so much. And it just stuck. So now it's really on everything. I've got it on mugs and pens and hats and magnets and stickers. But it really resonates. It resonated for me and it really is resonating with others. So that's why it's called that. And the 3 phases are reset, reimagine, and reemerge. So as you said, we talked about reset the first time. And really what that's all about is exactly what it sounds like, resetting. Well, you kind of reboot your computer, right? If something's wrong, you reboot. Something that isn't working, you unplug it. Reset is kind of taking that step back and really with as objective as an eye you possibly can, looking at who you are at this point in your life and really understanding what's most important to you, because that does evolve and change over time based on experiences and opportunities and people and things you've done and just where you are in your life. And so when you're talking about a decision-making framework, it's if you're making a decision based on what you think is important to you or what was important to you, it's that you're not going to have alignment. You're going to have a rub. It's going to be difficult to make that decision, or you're going to make a decision that then doesn't feel great. And so that's that reset piece. What's most important to me? Who am I now? And looking at it through a very, I would say like a very crystal clear filter, so to speak, because if we're looking at it with the what should we be, who should we be, what should we be doing, what should be important to me, that word should has to be taken out of the reset evaluation, because it's not what we should be, it's who we truly are, right? Because there are stories that we tell ourselves. There's things that people expect of us. There are expectations from the outside world, society, culture, whatever. The reset is an opportunity to really get crystal clear about who you are truly to your core. And then when you go through the rest of the phases, you're doing it from a place of authenticity, crystal clarity, and it's just so much more effective. So that's the reset: is who am I? What's most important to me? What are my priorities? And that's really that foundation for the rest.
Yeah, and I think the other pieces that we talked about too last time were understanding your core values.
Mhm.
So you have your priorities. You're reflecting. You're really understanding yourself. This is deep thinking here. This is
Mhm.
not 20 minutes, right?
Right.
But understanding your core values and then working to understand and conquer any limiting beliefs that you have.
Yes, limiting beliefs, that's a huge piece of it. And again, that comes with it's kind of along the same lines of like the stories we tell ourselves and what's imposed upon us. What are those limiting beliefs? Is it that um one of the a book that I read, The Big Leap, Gay Gay Hendricks is the author, and he talks about your like internal thermostat. And so let's say you're raised in a middle class family that struggles sometimes with money. That's how you grew up. Your thermostat is set at a certain level for where you are going to feel comfortable with money. And so that it creates a limiting belief, right? That okay, my family had X amount of money. That's if I go beyond that, even though what I really envision for myself is abundance and wealth, if I go above that threshold, it's going to feel uncomfortable. So you have to, the point there is the acknowledgement and the awareness that that could potentially be something for you, because then through that awareness, it's something that you can deal with and manage and understand and say, okay, I see where this is coming from. I understand why I'm feeling this way, and I also know that that's a false story. It's a limiting belief. I can have a beautiful wealth in my life. I can have abundance. I deserve that. And acknowledging that yes, that's how I grew up. That's kind of what's in my DNA because that's how I lived, but I decide I can change that. And so limiting beliefs can come for anything. It could be health, it could be relationships, it could be love, it could be success in your career, it can be material things that you might want to have that you never did. It's just so important. The awareness is key. Not to push it aside and say, well, I'm just going to pretend that I don't feel that way, or you know it's that acknowledgement and that awareness is like a superpower, because then you can look at it and say, is this really true, and what am I going to do about it?
And I love that you just said the word superpower because that makes me feel like that's a perfect segue into the reimagine and how we move forward from the reset
Yeah.
stage.
Yes, absolutely. So are you ready to jump into that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so now you've done the work with reset. You really understand who you are, what's important to you, what your core values are, what could potentially be blocking you. You are crystal clear of who this person is today. And now the fun part is, okay, so now that you know, what is it that you desire? What is it that you imagine for your next chapter? And I talk about next chapter. I use that because it resonates with me, and I hope it will with you. Is you have your book of life, right? And it's time to turn the page, and it's a fresh blank chapter, blank canvas that you need to, and I encourage you to intentionally be holding that pen or the keyboard. Some people love to type, I love to write. But whatever tool it is, it's so exciting to think about these blank pages and that pen or that keyboard, and now it's time for you to write that next chapter. So what does that look like? So the reimagining is taking that clarity about who you are and bringing it one step further to say, now what is this me going to do? So reimagine is, what do I see for myself in my relationships, in my career, in my love life, in my for my finances, for my activities, my adventure, my experiences, though whatever those things are that are most important to you, it's time to take those core values and then write the story about what those look like for your next chapter, right? So the important thing there is to get, again, I use the statement crystal clear very often, and it's intentional because our subconscious cannot decipher between imagination and reality. And this is not me being some kind of woo woo person. I am woo woo, but that's not that part of me. It is scientific. It is proven. There is research. And I know as healthcare professionals, we like the research, we like the numbers, we like proof, right? Because we don't want to do unto our patients something that hasn't been vetted. I'm telling you, there's science behind this. And so the energy that we create when we have this clear picture of what we want, the power of our subconscious to just say, you know what, okay, I see this is what we're doing, we start to attract experiences and opportunities and things into our lives based on what's in our subconscious. And another little science tip for those that love the proof is when we have this clarity and we know what it is that we want and desire, our reticular activating system goes into it's always working, but now that reticular activating system, which is like the filter in of things that we desire, of things that we're thinking about, it's going to start to literally pull in things in our environment that are aligned to this vision that we have for ourselves. So a great example that's so basic, but okay, I decide that I really want a red Volvo. That's what I want. I'm dying for a red Volvo. I've always wanted one. It's really a Bentley, but whatever. Um, so I say, oh, I definitely want to have a red Volvo, and I'm going to go test drive one. And I pull it up on the website, and it's like, oh wow, I can create my own. Put all of the bells and whistles in it, and so this is on my mind. You can bet that when I'm driving around town or I'm having a conversation with someone, all of a sudden there's red Volvos everywhere. Now, did I manifest red Volvos? No, but yes, but they've always been there. It's just now my beautiful, amazing reticular activating system is saying, hey, listen, Julie, I know that there are gazillions of things that are around you day in and day out. And I know that red Volvos are important to you. So I'm going to filter those in. So imagine that with a career. Okay. So let's say have done my reset work. I know exactly what's most important to me. And now I am reimagining what my next step in my career is. And my next step, and I did this for myself years ago. I knew that when I was working for Cerner that I wanted to be an executive. I wanted to run a large team. I wanted to make an impact on our clients because I was a nurse. I am a nurse. And I know that electronic medical record is a tool that is so extremely important to the care that I'm providing. I wanted to lead a team that was going to be able to ultimately improve that EHR and to make the care more safe, efficient, quality. Okay, that was my vision. So opportunities and people and conversations started to happen that were aligned to that vision. And don't you know that was the last position I had was I loved it so much, right? It was what I wanted to do. I was making that impact. And so that is the reimagine piece is getting crystal clear. And I'm going to talk about in reemerge, the third phase in a little bit. And the next one, you have to take action. So this is not, and Jim Carrey had a hysterical quote, which is, and he's a huge manifester and law of attraction person, which I'm going to talk about, but you can't manifest or create this vision and sit on the couch and eat a sandwich. Like that's not how it works,
Right.
right? You have to do the work of understanding what it is that you truly desire and be very aligned to it. And you also have to take action. So we'll talk about that. But anyway, so that's the piece is getting so clear about each of those core values and what that looks like in your next chapter. Again, we talked about reticular activating system. We talked about subconscious. And then we go to a little bit of the woo-woo, which is the law of attraction, which has science behind it as well. But ultimately what the law of attraction is that like attracts like. It's basically that simple. So if my vision is all of the things, that is the energy that I'm putting out there. That is what is going to come back to me. It's an energetic attraction. So again, it's one of the things that's really impactful is like positive and negative energy, right? So if
Mhm.
you are thinking about gratitude and you're thinking about things in an optimistic fashion, and again, not rose-colored glasses or naivete, but very much like looking for the good, being positive, all of that, you're going to attract more positive. If you're constantly in a swirl of negativity, that is going to continue. And I think we probably all know the people that it's nonstop. It's oh, my tire is flat. Oh, my handle fell off my car. I ran out of gas. Like there's always something because it's an energetic situation. If it's a constant swirl of negativity, that's what you live in. If you're leaning towards the positivity, the optimism, the looking for the good, you're going to find it, and gratitude. And that's one thing that I didn't even plan to talk about, but I'm going to put it in here because when we're talking about the law of attraction, we're talking about manifesting. Uh, Having gratitude for what you have now, being grateful for what you have now while you're working towards your next, man, that's the recipe right there for success. It
Now,
really is.
I was thinking that as you were talking because I was thinking about my own journey, and I guess more to kind of put it in a scenario situation. You're going through life. You have your successes and your opportunities, and you're almost blind really to this whole conversation. Really, you don't realize what you can be doing unless someone tells you, right? This is exactly why we're having this conversation. But going through your life, just even in my case, just incrementally moving along, doing my thing, starting to realize the things that I'm strong in that I really want to move toward. And I don't know that I actually had like, this is exactly what I want to do, but I was letting my drive take me where I needed to be. And I was finding opportunities as that was happening, right? So when you go back to when we talk about core values, those are the things that in that deep thought process and you really thinking about in your reset and you're really thinking about what you're doing and what are your core values. That's what's going to help you put those stepping stones down to your reimagined path, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then as you're thinking through what this really looks like and squashing those limiting beliefs,
Hmm.
because we don't need that, right? That
Right.
is a negative force to have those limiting beliefs. I could never do that, or
Hmm.
I could never be this. But you're exactly right. When you start talking about law of attraction, a few years ago, I just remember I woke up and I know I had heard it before and I tried practicing it before, but I really made a commitment to myself to be grateful and to go to sleep thinking about what it was that was good today and
Mm,
what I learned today. And
love
then when
that.
I wake up, I say, thank you for my boys. Thank you for the goodness in my life and those kinds of things. And it only takes a few minutes, but it really elevates your mood
Hmm.
and helps you to get up and get out of bed because your emotions are really everything.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing, right? Mindset and emotions and feelings, thoughts, beyond, beyond powerful. I mean, that is the essence of us. We are our thoughts and our beliefs and our all of those things. And that creates the energy, the vibration that we put off. And so that's what we attract. People, experiences,
Absolutely.
opportunities. And so to go back to what you said, because I think this is a great, from a self-care and self-love perspective, listeners, what Constance just said, having a gratitude practice and thinking about the wonderful things that happen in your day. It takes no time at all. It costs no money. It doesn't even require you to get your heart rate up. It requires awareness. It requires taking just a moment. And so, I think, I encourage you to think about that in if you take nothing away from this at all, that is the key because that will make a huge impact in your life. Is thinking about what is it that I'm grateful for and what great things happened today. I love that. I love
I
that.
believe it. I believe it. And I think we have to make a conscious effort to do this every once in a while, right? So, I mean, just having this conversation, I'm realizing that it's been quite some time since I've had a meditation of sorts and
Mhm.
really sat down and calmed my mind and pushed everything aside and really just gone through this process again.
Mm.
I have my notes from my last session with you, Julie, so I need to get back into it and remind myself to do that with all the stuff that's happening. We all have stuff in our lives.
Right.
But so, we're talking about all of these things. Let's talk too about what you do with this, right? So, how you brand yourself, like as you
Yes.
say, and
Right.
how do we really put this into action?
Mhm. So. there's two things there. So the first one is we'll say, how do we put this into action? We're going to talk about that in the reemerge phase.
Okay.
However, I will say that just to kind of bring this all together is with the reimagine, I want you to be clear. It's looking at those core values and then saying, what does this look like for me in my next chapter? Writing that down, writing it as a story or bullet points or what have you. But it's using all of your senses when you're getting this clarity. So if let's say my health is one of my core values, and one of the things that's in my next chapter is I want to be able to run a 5K. It's so basic. So let's just say that. What does that look like? How do you feel when you do that 5K? What does it look like when you cross that finish line? Who's high-fiving you? Who's holding up a sign? What sneakers do you have on? What does the fresh air feel like? So it's really getting all the senses engaged in what this next chapter looks like for each of those core values. And there's power in that, because again, that's what your reticular activating system is going to be filtering in. It's what your subconscious believes to be true. And it helps you get crystal clear on what opportunities, experiences, people, and things that you want to have and seek out in your life to have that vision come to reality. So that's where you go, and that's what you need to get to by the end of the reimagine session, which there is really no end. It's a constantly evolving vision, right? Because again, you decide. So let's say you have this master vision and plan, and 3 weeks from now, you're like, ugh, I thought that I wanted that to look like, but I think it needs to evolve a little, change a little. This is your life. You get to do that. But at least having that blueprint, that kind of manifesto that you've put together, you have something to go change versus just, being on autopilot. And that's one item that I really want us to consider as well, is that we do live life on autopilot a lot. And some of that is self-preservation. Because if we had to think about every single thing we did all day long, we would be exhausted. So, intentionally, our body goes on autopilot. When we brush our teeth in the morning, we don't really think about brushing our teeth. We just do it. When, we drive to work. Sometimes we drive to work, we get there and we're like, I don't even remember getting here, because we're just on autopilot, right? But let's take that into consideration and say, we don't want to be on autopilot in every area of our life. So it's kind of like waking up and saying, hold on, I think I'm living in autopilot in this particular area of my life. Let me take a look at that. And that's when the reset and reimagine starts. And so awareness about autopilot is also very powerful. Very powerful. So the last piece, Constance, that we wanted to talk about here is about brand, your brand. And it really ties into this reimagine piece. And I'm going to talk about it as your personal brand, which ties into your professional brand as a healthcare professional. So as you are understanding what's most important to you, and as you are understanding what you imagine for your future, from your profession perspective, it's super important and a great opportunity at this juncture to say, what is my brand? How do I represent myself? And the key is, because some people say, oh, brand, they roll their eyes. I'm not in marketing. I'm not, I don't have my own business, whatever. But your personal brand is how people perceive you, how you represent yourself. And even if you don't work on developing your personal brand, you already have one. So one of the first steps in, doing this personal branding work is going out and talking to those that you work with, those that you report to, those that report to you, and asking them, give me some words about your perception of me and working with me, working next to me working for you, and starting to do that field work, I'll call it, to understand how you're currently perceived from your personal and professional brand. And then that's a really great starting point to say, is this how I want to be perceived? Is this how I want my mark in this career or in this world to be? And maybe the answer is yes, like spot on. My authentic self is what I am portraying to my colleagues, the world, whatever. And sometimes you may want to curate it a little bit differently. And so again, it's a lot about that awareness that yes, I want to ensure that my core values, my mission, my vision is being portrayed at all levels of my life, personal, professional, in my interactions with people. So that's something to consider as well, is what is it that you want to, like, kind of like your legacy? What is the imprint you're leaving when you leave a room, when you enter a room, right? Do you want to be the person that people say, "Oh wow, her follow-up is phenomenal. Like she's always on task," or, "Oh, he is always willing to collaborate," or, "She is always the first one to be willing to take a risk." Maybe that, maybe that's, but that's, you get to decide that, right? You get to decide. So that's something to think about that we don't always think about in healthcare, because we're like, oh, we don't need that. It's a great way also to market yourself for your next position, right?
You're absolutely right, Julie. You always are when we're talking about this kind of stuff. It's I will say that that's a scary thing. I mean, maybe not sitting and reflecting and saying what are my core values? What is my personal brand? What do I want to portray? How do I want people to see me? That requires feedback. And that's a scary thing because maybe you don't want to know, but you know what? You can't grow unless you really know
Right.
how other people perceive you. Um, and I every once in a while I try to do some kind of an exercise with my team or even at home and just say, when this happened, what did you think? Like, how was my reaction? Because you think you're reacting a specific way, but other people are seeing you completely different. And
Right.
I know I growing up, my everything showed on my face, everything. And it was it got me in trouble a lot, or it turned people off. And people still I think I still have a presence where people think that, I stuck up or whatever, but I don't know. But I still exude some of that people are a little bit put off by me at first until they get to know me. Hey, I'm not expecting everybody to like me. That's not my purpose in life. And I get it, but it's scary to request that feedback. And I think so a wise person once said to me, actually a mentor said to me, take any and all feedback because it's a gift.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whether it's positive or negative, just take it and really think about what people are saying to you. And
Yeah,
I think that's such a great piece of advice.
I agree. And I love that we're talking about feedback because it is uncomfortable, and also it is a huge gift. And so if you can lean into the whole concept of feedback from like receiving feedback and also providing feedback, right? It's a gift for you to be able to provide feedback to someone, positive and constructive. And I my ears perked up when you said, I know not everyone's going to like me. Having a personal brand and getting feedback is not about being liked, right?
Yeah.
None of us are everyone's cup of tea. I am not everyone's cup of tea. I know that some people like, whoa, man, that woman is a lot. That's okay. Because I am many people's cup of tea, and this is what they want in a coach and in a partner and a friend and whatever.
Right.
So it's really not about the like factor when you're talking about personal brand. It's about establishing who you are, what you represent, how you approach things, and being really comfortable with that. Like again, I love the word superpower, but it really is a superpower to truly hone in on your personal brand, because then you're like, yes, yes. You wake up in the morning, think about what you're grateful for, you stand up, you do your super what is it, the Superman pose, and you're like, yeah, I'm ready to go because I know who I am and I'm so comfortable with this, and I'm going to go rock the day, whether I'm at the grocery store or I'm at the office or I'm at the, wherever. I'm rocking it because I am 100% so comfortable and clear and excited about this person that I am and who I know and who I'm embracing now. So, I mean, this whole You Decide framework, as you can tell, I get very excited, but it is it's life-changing, period. It is. And, going through life on autopilot is not an option for me. And I want you to think about that. You get to choose, you decide. But if you're like, no, I'm not going to live on autopilot, and we get one time at this life, one time. And, another one of my favorite sayings is about living with no regrets. When you think about when you're, 90, 100 years old and you're at the end of your life, do you want to look back and think, wow, I did not do all the things. I did not. And I don't mean do all the things like you want to jump out of a plane or something, but it could be just curating my garden, right?
Mm-hmm.
Constance, you love your garden.
Oh, yeah.
Do you ever want to be like, oh man, I really didn't enjoy that as much as I could have? Or, whatever the case may be. Like, we have this amazing opportunity to do and live and be who we want to be. And it just takes taking a step back and figuring out what that is. Yeah.
I love that. So I think that's where we're going to conclude, because we do have another session
Yes.
to talk about reemerge. But at this point, I think we want to encourage our listeners to start their journey. Go back to the first session, start over, talk about listen to reset, talk about this one again, listen to this one, think about what you want to do. Think about who you are and where you want to go. And then I'm going to hand it over to Julie to talk a little bit about reemerge, just to kind of give us a little teaser before we get into that one.
Yes. So in the next episode, when we talk about reemerge, we are going to talk about, okay, you've created this vision. You know what this next chapter is going to look like. So now what? How are you going to do this? What are the actions? What are the barriers? How do we manage change? How do we do things that are scary? How do we hold ourselves accountable? How do we change habits? Oh, it's all sorts of good stuff. This is where the rubber hits the road. This is where, like, we've done all the mind work, and now it's like, let's go. And this is reemerges the let's go. It's the proverbial, caterpillar becoming the butterfly and coming out of the chrysalis. It's like I walked into this You Decide framework, a caterpillar, and now I'm coming out as this beautiful butterfly. So it's the butterfly stage.
I love it. I love it. Well, Julie, this is always educational, and I love to see you, and I love to talk with you. And this is just unbelievable work. I mean, every time we talk, I keep thinking to myself, yep, you decide. You figure out what it is you need to do for you, because nobody else can do that for you. So
Right.
I so appreciate you, Julie. I can't wait to come back on the next episode.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you'll join us again for another session of Informatically Speaking.
This has been a production of the Greater Delaware Valley chapter of the American Nursing Informatics Association. For more information about the GDV-ANIA chapter, visit us at community.ania.org/Greater Delaware Valley/home.